You are listening to Radio Bilingüe on WBFO FM HD3 Buffalo, powered by Sin Fronteras Western New York and presented by Batavia Downs Gaming and Hotel. More information at bataviadownsgaming.com. Sin Fronteras Western New York, Buffalo's media platform for Western New York Hispanics,
producing bicultural content that informs, entertains, and inspires the forward thinking.
Sin Fronteras Western New York, delivering bilingual stories,
hot topic conversations,
and the voices from our Latino community.
Sin Fronteras Western New York,
la única producción contemporánea en español
y en inglés en la ciudad de Buffalo. Sin Fronteras Western New York,
your connection to cultural ties in Latin America
and hyperlocal news in the Western New York area.
Sin Fronteras Western New York es para ti.
Welcome everyone to Generaciones con Sin Fronteras with Sheana VanDyne and my lovely co-host Dinorah Santos.
Hello.
Today we have a very special guest, Stephanie Rivera, and she is the CEO and founder of Half Luna Empanadas. Stephanie, welcome.
Welcome, Stephanie. Yes.
I love it. This has been a long time coming, girl.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you for allowing me to be here with you and talk to you about Half Luna Empanadas and
Absolutely.
my journey.
Yeah, because we definitely want to know more about you. Mm-hmm. So let our audience know a little bit about Stephanie Rivera.
Yeah. So I'm Stephanie Rivera. I am the CEO of Half Luna Empanadas. I was born in the Bronx to a Peruvian mother and a Puerto Rican father. I moved to Buffalo with my family around the age of 4. We moved to the Lower West Side. And I grew up on the Lower West Side. So attending Dual Porter Campus School number 3.
Okay.
And then from there, we kind of bounced around on the Lower West Side. I lived, and then I lived on Hoyt Street, Albany Street. We were all over the West Side. I then went from Dual Porter Campus School 3 to a school on the East Side called Buffalo Traditional. And from Buffalo Traditional, I graduated 8th grade and went on to go to McKinley High School. But essentially, Buffalo is the city that raised me here and has made me the person that I am today. Some more about me is that I'm huge into volunteering. So I give back to the city that I live and has raised me. I am a board member of the Buffalo Center for Arts and Technology, Literacy Buffalo Niagara, and the PGA Reach Western New York Foundation. I am a Karen Lee Spalding Leader of Color Fellow through the John R. O'Shea Foundation. I am a Buffalo's Finest Honoree for the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, and I am a Buffalo Business First 40 Under 40 Award recipient.
Wow, it's a list right there.
Yeah, I know. How do you find the time is the first thing I'm thinking of.
You got to make the time. You
Yeah.
got to make it. You got to schedule. But my biggest and most proudest achievement is raising my 17-year-old daughter, Juliet, who's a senior this year at Mount St. Mary Academy. She'll be graduating in the next few months and going off to college.
Did she decide yet?
She has not decided. We're still waiting to hear back from a few universities and colleges, and then she'll make her final decision. But she does know that she wants to study international business.
Wow.
And I'm all for it. I'm all
Sure.
for it. Of course, I'm going to miss her, but she has her own journey that she needs to be on and discover herself.
Yeah. And you set quite an example, so I'm super
Thank
proud
you.
of you. So why
I
don't
appreciate that.
Of course. Why don't we kick it off to talk a little bit about the business, and then we'll, I guess, kind of go back to the history and how, you felt like this is something that you need to do, and of course your community work that you do, because that's one thing that connected us and one thing that I love about you. So tell us a little bit about Half Luna and how that all started.
Half Luna Empanadas.
AKA pastelillos.
Pastelillos
I know.
también, empanadillas.
Yes.
It really all depends on where you're from, right? So Half Luna Empanadas is a business that I established coming on a year. Prior to that, I was not an official business, but I was making empanadas. I've been making empanadas since my teens, but it officially became a business almost a year ago. And I discussed the way that it came about a few different ways, right? I was working at different local not-profit agencies or organizations, and oftentimes I was tasked with ordering food. And when I order food, I was ordering things that were readily accessible, that were able to be delivered. And oftentimes that's like pizza, tacos, subs. And so when I was working with specifically teenage students in the last few years, one thing that I often heard was like, we're so tired of getting pizza and tacos and subs. Can we get something else?
Yeah.
And sure, I made that possible, right? But I had to go order the food and then go pick it up, right?
Yeah.
And so there were no services that food would be delivered, or at least within budget, right? Because you can order from Uber Eats and have it delivered, but it's going to cost you a fortune.
Yeah. And if you're working for a school, it's hard to invoice for that.
Yeah, that too.
Or even leave the school.
Yeah.
I can only imagine.
Exactly. And fortunately for me, my job gave me the flexibility to be able to order all types of different types of food, go pick it up. But that also took several hours to do, right? So if I was ordering food from Tops, because kids love the fried chicken from Tops on the east side. Right?
Oh, no, I get that chicken a lot for church.
Yeah,
for
it
events,
is so
we use that
good,
chicken.
right? So I was picking up food from there. I was picking up food from the West Side Bazaar. I was picking up food from the Downtown Bazaar, Vietnamese food, African food, right? Just so that I could create, it was mostly so that our students can have diverse food options. Right? They were tired of eating the same thing. And so I had a student ask, well, why don't you just make pastelillos? And I'm like, yeah, I could definitely make pastelillos, except that I'm working all day and then I'll have to make them and then bring them here. So there are several places throughout Buffalo that you can buy pastelillos. One of my favorite being Montes on Swan Street, right? And so I would order pastelillos, but again, like the cost and then going to go pick it up, I still had to pick up and take it back. And so that's when I discovered the need. Like students, not just the students, but also the staff, they wanted a diverse food option. And so that's kind of how Half Luna Empanadas was born, was that I discovered the need and then I wanted to fulfill that need that we had in our city. So providing a diverse food option that is a catering option that will be delivered to you, right? So so that I discovered the need, and then it just kept evolving from there. Anytime that I went to a party or a gathering with friends, my go-to dishes were always deviled eggs or chicken wing dip. Right? I
love chicken wing dip.
I know, it's so good.
So I would make those two things all the time and take them to parties, and because I could never go empty-handed, right? And I didn't want to buy stuff at the store. I'm always been someone that like enjoys cooking. And I love when people love food. Yeah. Love my food specifically.
Yeah, you can make them happy. Yeah, when they have that first bite.
Right? When you take that first bite and it's so good, like, and your shoulders are shimming and you're like kind of dancing because, the food is good.
Yeah. No one ever does that with my food. I don't know what's happening here. That's all because I buy stuff. I go to the grocery store.
And that's how I want people to feel every time they take a bite of my food.
Yeah.
Right?
When I make dinner and I'll wait, my husband will start eating.
Wait for the response.
How was it? What did you think?
Like watching me.
I always want a response. I'm like, was it good? Yeah. So I started taking empanadas to gatherings. And every time I took empanadas, someone was like, oh my gosh, where'd you get these from? And I'd be like, I made them, I made them from my kitchen, I guess. And it's like, how can I get these? Where'd you get them from? How'd you make them? And so from there, I just started making empanadas for people, and someone requested like, hey, can you make me a few? Sure, I'll make you a few. And I would do it free of charge, you know, because I just love cooking and people enjoying my food. But it became, I guess, a little bit chaotic when more people started requesting. And it was like making 1 dozen, then making 3 dozen, then making 5 dozen, and then making 10 dozen. And I was like, oh man, like this is too much. It's too costly. It's time consuming. I need to like start charging people. And so that's essentially what I started doing, was charging people. And it became so regular that people were requesting that I then was like, I got to create a business out of this, right? Like I've always been a hustler. I like my side hustle, a good side hustle, right? And so a year ago, decided to make this a legitimate business. And I knew the work that goes into creating and developing and marketing a business, right? And I've seen other entrepreneurs do it, and I'm like, why can't I?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how it came about.
Tell me about the feeling of leaving your job to venture into your own thing.
It was scary. I'm betting on myself the entire time, right? And there were multiple factors that went into me deciding to leave my job and focus on my business full time, because, you know, when you have a full-time job, you have a consistent income. You know that you're going to work, what you're going to do, and that you're going to get a paycheck every 2 weeks. With starting a business, I knew that I was making money, but it was fluctuating, right? It was like a roller coaster ride. Some weeks would be really amazing. Other weeks it was crickets. It was dead. Like, I'm like, okay, what am I going to do now to market and get more customers? So then when I became more consistent, the thought occurred to me, like, I need to leave my job in order to fulfill this dream of being an entrepreneur. Because I always had an entrepreneurial spirit. I just didn't know what I wanted to do as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, like where that passion was.
Yeah, exactly. All my life I've grown up like wanting to be an artist. I like painting. I do creative things, you know. And actually, empanadas is like an art.
Absolutely. Oh, for sure.
You know?
Cooking
is an art. And making empanadas, just for the folding of the empanada, the pressing of the empanada, I like them to look beautiful, consume beautiful food. But leaving my job, right, going back to that, was a really difficult decision, right? Because I had spent 20 plus years in education and mental health. And so I knew it well, right? And sure, there are always things that you can learn, you know, new best practices that come about every year. And it just became, to me, very mundane. And when I started feeling like, wow, what am I doing with my life? Is this what I want to do for the rest of my life? I've 20 years in, like, can I leave this behind and start a new adventure and start something new? I've always been passionate about learning, though. So I'm like, I can learn and do anything that I set my mind to. Ever since I was a child, I've been able to, you know, if I want something, I will pursue it and I will do it, and I will do it to the best of my ability, and I will be good at it for the most part, right? 90% of the time. Sometimes you have some failures, but 90% of the time I'm like, I'm going to do, if I've set my heart and my mind and I'm passionate about something, I will be good at it, right? And so when my business started growing and I was unhappy at work, and it wasn't, you know, it was never like the people that I worked with. It wasn't the students that I was serving. It was just me. I was unhappy. And so I had to take a leap of faith. And taking that leap, you definitely have to have people in your circle, in your network, in your community that you can count on and that will be there to support you, whether you succeed or you fail, right?
For sure.
And so I guess it was a risk, and it was the biggest risk. Someone told me the biggest risk is not taking the risk, right? And so I did it. I was like, you know what? Let's see what happens. And at the end of the day, I know that, like, if this doesn't work out, I can always go find another job.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and then you can
So
have
I
that
could-
security again.
Exactly.
Yeah, and
exactly.
I've heard from other entrepreneurs. So I grew up in an entrepreneurial family, and they've told me that it's when you have a side hustle, it's exactly that. It's just on the side, so it only goes so far. It only climbs as high as you want it when you have extra time. But once you give up that secure job, it like changes your mindset like instantly. Did you find yourself
Absolutely.
just kind of more hungry, more like I have to make this work otherwise?
Absolutely. I mean, like, I was dependent on me. My daughter is dependent on me. My keeping a roof over her head is dependent on me. Putting food on the table is dependent on me, right? Tuition is dependent on me. Like, if I'm not bringing in money, then I'm not able to afford those things in my life, right? And
Yeah,
so,
that's
like,
real.
I knew that I needed to put my time and every ounce of my effort toward building a business. And like, I had to lay out what that looked like. What is my ultimate goal here? What's my business plan? And it constantly is changing, right? Because you discover new things along the way, but it drove me. It drove me like nothing else has driven me before, because now I don't have the security of a full-time job. I am dependent on me to bring in the income solely based on what I do, right? Reaching out to people, promoting my business, all of that, has helped build my business and bring in the funds that I need to support my life, my lifestyle, my child. So if I'm not doing that, then I'm not getting any business. And if I'm not getting any business, I'm not making any money. If I'm not making any money, like, how am I living? So you have to have that drive and that flame underneath you.
No, and I think the way that you constantly, evolve you're self-aware, you can tell, and also with the business. And I do want you to give some tips and tricks and just like a little bit of coaching to other people that are thinking about becoming entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs that feel stuck. But first, I just want to commend you because I love that. Yes, you stepped away from, the nonprofit or being of service, but really you didn't. So right now, what you just mentioned in your bio is you're doing your own business, you're doing what you're passionate, you're filling your cup, but on your spare time, besides taking care of Juliet, you're running boards, you're volunteering your time.
PGA golfing.
I know, helping the youth learn how to golf, the little kiddos. So I just love that. So I know that you say you stepped away because you're not getting a paycheck, but for me, it's like I don't think you stepped away or you stopped. It was more of like evolution, and I just love that.
Thank you. Yeah, I've naturally always been a helper. I've always wanted to help people, and I think that's what led me to work in not-for-profit organizations. It feels good to help people. And when I decided to step away from my full-time job at a local not-for-profit organization, I knew that with time, what I was doing as a food entrepreneur, I could still help my community, right? And so it just looks different. It's not a hands-on, hey, I'm with the kids all the time, taking them on field trips or introducing them to people within our community. Now it looks like, hey, I'm donating food to an organization that I made because they might not have the funds to buy food, but here's food while you put on this event, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It just looks different, but that is what fills my cup, is helping other people. And not only does it help our community, but it helps me. Like, at the end of the day, there will be someone that discovers me because they tasted something that I donated. For example, I donated to Roswell, and they had an event, and the name of the event escapes me, so I apologize. But I donated over 200 appetizer-sized empanadas.
Wow.
But with that donation, I left my business card. I handed out my own empanadas at the event so that I can talk about what an empanada is. Also, I just love to see, again, like when people eat empanadas and they're like, what is this deliciousness? And then I was able to network, right? And from there, I got several people placing catering orders or going back to their businesses and saying like, hey, I discovered this person. Now we can use them as another caterer. I also donated to the PGA Western New York Reach Foundation. They have golf events for kids, free golf clinics. And when you're putting on an event for free, oftentimes you don't have a lot of money or a budget to order food. Food is expensive.
I think you also donated. We had an event here at WBFO for Hispanic Heritage Month.
I did,
And
yeah.
You donated empanadas.
I did donate empanadas to that as well. And then the beauty of that is that I walk into the studio, my business card is right there.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Right?
Was that
So it's
before
like
you were on the
familiar.
news with the Hispanic Heritage or after?
That was,
I think it was
after we made that connection there. And
Oh, okay.
Yes,
And that's
yeah,
lovely.
yeah.
I know you have to talk about, so you not only make it, but you know, like you know a lot a lot about empanadas and the history.
So when they ask about what are empanadas,
yeah, like, what do you
you're
say?
ready.
We want the rundown because I haven't gotten this.
For sure.
And I'm interested on why some say empanadas and some say pastelillos. I'm Puerto Rican, so I say pastelillos.
But I heard pastelillos was recently, and not that I stopped saying it, but it's something sweet.
Pasteles are sweet.
Or is that pastelitos? No?
Pasteles. Some people sometimes maybe pastelillos, depending on your makeup, but pasteles are the sweet dessert.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a little bit of empanada history, right? So just so you know, empanadas are either fried or baked pastries, and they're typically shaped like a half moon. Hence where my name comes from, which is half luna empanadas. I wanted to incorporate a Latin word in there, and a lot of people often know what luna means. So then they put it together. They see my product, they're like, half moon.
Makes
It's
sense.
very cute.
I know it is cute,
Right?
and the little logo, I love
Yeah.
it.
And just so everyone knows, the logo is empanada. It looks
like a moon, and then it
a
has
half moon, but it
stars.
has empanadas. And then empanada comes from the Spanish verb empanar, which means to wrap or coat in bread, right?
Oh, okay.
So the history, which date back to the Middle Ages, empanadas have their origin in the Middle East, where they would wrap meats and veggies in bread dough, because then you can transport it, right? You open up the bread, you put the meat, the veggies in there, you can transport it. It lasts for several days. The Arabs took this recipe to Spain during their occupation of the Iberian territory, right? And then the Spanish colonists brought empanadas to Latin America and the Philippines. So they actually originated in the Middle East.
Oh, okay.
Right? So the earliest written mention of empanadas is in a Catalan cookbook from the 1520s.
Wow.
So empanadas have been around for a
while.
really long time, and they actually were not moon shaped when they originated. They look like a pie. So think of like an apple pie, and people would then cut it into slices, and then you would eat it that way. It wasn't until later on that they evolved, and then they became that half moon shape. But each region in Latin America and the Caribbean adapted empanadas to suit local ingredients, preferences of like what they want the fillings to be, and traditions. Argentina, specifically Argentina, is famous for their empanadas. They're readily available throughout all of Argentina, the country. They're a fast food item, but they're also like a sit down at a restaurant item too, right? They're traditionally made with beef, chicken, or vegetable. And in the Caribbean, they'll use like their native yuca or their plantains to make the dough, the outer shell for their empanadas, or to fill it with it, to make the fillings for the empanadas. And then in Puerto Rico, my dad's Puerto Rican, right? So I got my recipe from my daddy. In Puerto Rico, they'll have, they are called empanadillas, pero también se llama pastelillos. And that's just a name that has evolved with time. So originally they're all called empanadas, but it all depends on where you're from, right? So they've evolved so much that it's really specific to the region that you get them from, and what you call them,
And how you prepare them,
how you prepare
too.
them, and
Yeah.
what's in your empanada. You know, like it used to typically just be beef, right, and chicken and vegetables,
beef and cheese.
And then they started incorporating seafood into them. So like, you can get shrimp empanadas, you can get triple empanadas, and then they started making pastry empanadas, right?
Yep.
So with guava or cream cheese,
And then
pineapple.
empanadas is such an easy thing to do. I remember doing it when I was little, and I would do a pizza one.
Oh, yes.
cheese.
My grandma did that, my abuela.
I make pizza empanadas.
Yes, I was
también.
going to say, Sheena, and now, well, we'll talk about that, but your breakfast ones have been a hit recently.
Yeah.
I saw that. So now your background is also Peruvian. So is there a difference between the Peruvian empanada and the Puerto Rican one?
So I don't know that there's an actual Peruvian empanada.
Oh, okay.
But I do incorporate some of my Peruvian heritage and like spices that Peru has into my empanadas, and I think that's what makes them so unique. Is like, while my recipes have been passed down from my dad, who has received the recipes from my grandmother, I have somewhat altered them to incorporate like Peruvian style spices, right? And so they're not so much Peruvian, they're more on the Puerto Rican side. But I think that just by default, like, I incorporate Peruvian stuff and spices because I'm Peruvian and my mom cooks Peruvian food. It's delicious. And I always, I'm like, oh, what is this? Like, papa huancaína.
What are some of your renditions or like flavors that you have, or types of empanadas that you've provided, and then some like out of the box ones that you were like, you know what, let me just try this, and it went well.
I mean, you can the beautiful part about empanadas is you can take almost anything and put it in like a piece of dough and fold it over and fry it, and it tastes delicious. But traditional empanadas, like the beef and cheese, chicken and cheese, are my favorite. Like those are just my go-tos. Traditional people, I have yet to meet a person that does not like an empanada.
I don't think so either.
Yeah.
Have you, Dinorah?
Have you? No.
My husband, he's very picky, and he loves them.
You see, even the pickiest of eaters, and and everyone makes them different, right? And we talked about that. Every region makes them different. Every individual makes them different. Every family makes them different. So you can go to Niagara Cafe, you can go to La Flor, you can go to Montes. Everyone's gonna make them different. Everyone's gonna use different spices. Yes, right. And some people put olives in them. Some people put potato in them.
Yeah. I don't like the potato.
No.
So,
I do.
Just putting it out there.
You see?
Like, don't put potatoes in my empanadas.
The pickiest of eaters, the beauty of the empanadas that I make is like, there are veggies in there, but you would never know because I mince them so well, and then I saute them, and then I cook it all into like whatever protein I'm making, right? The meats or the chickens. And so that adds a lot of flavor. But also, like, when you have a kid eating and you don't have like a pepper popping out, they're more likely to eat it because it's like, oh, there's no vegetables in here. But there actually are vegetables in there.
And I think empanadas are a great introduction food, especially in the workplace. When I was working in Albany, and the workplace wasn't diverse at all. And I was like the only Hispanic and the only person of color. And we do potlucks. And I was like, you know what, let me just try to bring, because I don't like bringing the same regular stuff. Right. And then I did it, the pastelillos, empanadillas myself. And I brought that. And everyone loved it. I just did the regular beef and cheese. And sometimes people think of the name, oh, well, what is that? Because they don't know what it is. They're scared to try it. But if you say it's just beef and cheese, and they taste it, and everyone loved it.
A little sample of it, right? Like, even people who, don't know about what an empanada is are willing to try it just because they're like, oh, it's fried. Or, oh, like, it's in dough. And how bad could it be, So...
have you faced any like misconceptions on the food?
Of make empanadas, yes. Like, this is funny because I often talk about empanadas, and people are, specifically, I think with the Latin community, because every family makes their own type of empanadas, right? And it's a common, regular item in Hispanic Latino families. And so when I'm like I'm going to start this business, I'm going to make empanadas, right? Like, well, if you're in a Latino family, you're like, well, I can get empanadas anytime. Like, you think these are like, it's a good business venture? And I'm like, well, you can get burgers anytime.
That's true. Hot dogs.
You can get hot
That's true.
dogs.
Yeah.
You can get salads, and all of that stuff you can make at home, because some of my Latino friends were like, well, I can make those at home. Like, yeah, you can make them at home, but other people can't make them at home.
You can make spaghetti and meatballs at home.
Exactly.
Super easy and cheap.
Yeah, people still go out to eat those items,
Yeah.
right? And so, like, I think just the misconception there is like they're readily available, but that is because I was talking to Latinos, which isn't a bad thing, It actually makes me think and like, okay, so then who do I need to market these to, right? People who have not tried empanadas, people who don't have empanadas readily available to them, right? So then I use that as a marketing strategy too.
Which I think is so smart. And that's, I was actually going to talk about that before, was the way you broke into the market. So I was introduced to you and I saw you on LinkedIn, and I was like, so my Puerto Rican heart was so happy. I'm like, she's outside of Seneca 1 serving empanadas. Tech Buffalo knows about you, BCAT, Roswell, just all of these corporations. I'm like, that is super smart.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was like, that is where, they have the money, to, like you said, to order food. And the way, if anyone has ever had Half Luna, the food is good, but she's also very professional. Like the way you set everything up, you wouldn't know, you from any other professional catering business.
Yeah.
And even though it's just you coming in, and rolling everything in and making it look beautiful, like, from corporate to parties to nonprofits. I mean, I think you do a great job.
Thank you.
And that consistency is super important.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of goes back to my artistic side, right? Like, I like it to look beautiful, right? Like, no one wants food that looks gross or sloppy or just thrown together. So but also going back to what you were saying, Sheana, I was fortunate enough to like collaborate. And that's how I ended up at Seneca 1, right? Someone discovered my food. They said, this is super duper good. I think that we should and can expose other people that aren't familiar with empanadas and Latin food. And this is a perfect item to expose other people to Latin food. And so I was fortunate enough to collaborate with the Clubhouse downtown, which is an indoor golf simulator right outside of Seneca 1. And we collaborated. And I think collaboration is key when it comes to starting and building a business. Like, you have to collaborate. You can't just go out there on your own. You have to find people who are willing to give you a chance, people who are willing to work together with you and build together, right? So I was just fortunate enough to... everything happens for a reason. And so meeting the guys over at the Clubhouse and liking my food, and then being out there all summer long. But that's part of building a business. You got to do unconventional things.
I think that's where I met you.
Yeah.
I think it was at the Clubhouse.
You did.
We went to the event. Yes.
Yep, it was at the Clubhouse. I met you. See, I was slinging empanadas out of the Clubhouse.
And they were very good that day. Very, very good.
Thank you.
So why don't we take a break, and why don't you tell people where to find you?
Yeah. So I'm on social media platforms, Facebook and Instagram at Half Luna Empanadas. And then I have a website, which is halflunaempanadas.com. And on my website, you'll see a little story about myself. You'll find my menus. I have breakfast empanadas and just your regular empanadas, but I also offer Latin delights. So things that complement the empanada. So if you're having breakfast empanadas, we have fruit bowls. And then if you are ordering our regular empanadas, we do also offer rice and beans, white rice and beans, yellow rice con gandules, tostones, salads, that complement the empanadas as well. So 3 different ways to find me. You can Google me and I'll probably pop up.
Perfect.
What are some of the challenges running a food business?
There are a lot of food businesses. So you have to stand out from other food businesses, right? So there's that, but also the cost of food. It was really difficult at first determining how much food I needed.
Yeah.
Because I would be buying food, making the food for the event, and then having leftover food. So then I was cutting into my profit. And so the cost of food, and it's constantly fluctuating, right? Because sometimes things will go on sale, but groceries have gone up in price. So then that's also been a challenge to keep my costs at a reasonable price while providing a good quality product still. But I've become very good at just, knowing how much food I need for a specific event, or if someone orders 100 empanadas, I know how much food I need to be able to make those 100 empanadas. Whereas before, when you first are in the food business, it's hard determining, like I can make 12 empanadas from this pound of beef, right? This is just an example. But then there were times where it's like, but I need a little bit more. So I need to buy a little bit more food. But then if I don't use it all, then I'm essentially wasting money on food and wasting food. Well, it wouldn't always go to waste, but I was cutting them into my profit. So just knowing food costs, which I've gotten really good at, but it takes time. Yeah.
How did you figure out like where to source your stuff from, like your ingredients?
Oh goodness, girl. So it was just a matter of like trial and error, like different grocery stores. I did my research, like anytime that I went to Wegmans or go to Tops or go to Price Right, I looked at the Goya catalog, like I literally documented what it costs. For example, like if I'm buying meat, I documented how much it costs per pound at the grocery stores, at a butcher shop. I also documented the quality of the meat, right? So is it 80% lean and 20% fat, 90% lean, 10% fat? What are the cost differences? Does it affect the flavor, right? So I did a lot of research. So anything that I put into my product, I want to be quality. But then I also want it to be cost effective because I don't want to be buying something super expensive, making something that, sure, it tastes delicious, but then I have to raise the price because the food cost is
it's
too
so
much.
high.
So it's essentially, it was just research and that took a while because prices fluctuate again. And then I just I was going to the places to buy my products consistently. Then I knew, okay, like this is where I get my red peppers from. This is where I get my cilantro from. I get my onions from here. I get my Goya discs from here. So I knew where my go-to places are now. And then if I find something that's cheaper someplace else and it's the same product, but it's on sale that week, I'm going to go to that place and go grab it from there.
And it sounds like you learned a lot by, just your own kind of journaling and writing things down or trial by error. But what resources have you found like in the community or even online that really helped you kind of with that competitive edge as an entrepreneur?
So I would say the resource that I first initially used to launch my business was the Buffalo State Small Business Center.
Oh, awesome.
Great. That's a great resource.
It is a great resource. And, they helped me realize things that I didn't know. So as far as like documenting, right, your finances, also like where or how do I get an LLC? How do I become a legitimate business? How do I get a DBA? How do I apply for one? I didn't know how easy it was to get a DBA. It's actually fairly easy. Just go downtown, make sure that the name isn't taken by someone else. You pay your $25, I think, and then it's your name, your DBA.
Can you do it as your own name?
I'm not really sure. I wouldn't. If
Like
it's
a
not
Dinorah Baines?
taken,
Yeah, doing business as Dinorah.
yeah.
Oh, look
No,
at you.
you should go search it because they have a computer right there.
Oh,
they have a
okay.
computer, and
I don't have a business yet, but
Dinorah
but
LLC.
you could lock it in, Dinorah. You
Okay.
could lock in the name and do business as.
I know there is no Sheana VanDyne business.
Yeah.
for
well,
a
my
fact.
mom's name is Dinorah, so she'll be my competition. I'll
Yeah,
get it before
Get
you,
it
mommy.
before her. Get it before her.
So funny.
But yeah, the Small Business Center. And then a lot of the things that I've done have really been just my own research.
Mhm.
Well, yeah, my own research, but also having a coach. So a lot of props to Althea Lorson.
Oh, okay. I've heard about her. A lot of people talk about
Althea,
her.
yeah, she is fantastic. And she's an entrepreneur. She helped start and build the entrepreneur program at the University of Buffalo like many years ago. I took a leadership course. It's called Next Level Leadership with her that she created. And she is my coach. And so any business oriented questions that I would have, I would take them to her because there are sometimes like questions that I have that I might be embarrassed to ask. And the embarrassment is just me. Like
Yeah.
I am afraid to ask questions because I don't want to seem like I'm dumb.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
No, I got you.
And we teach our kids to ask questions.
Yeah.
And I'm a question asker. I ask a lot of
I
questions,
ask
but
questions too.
there are sometimes questions that I'm like, oh, I don't want to go ask that. And I will ask Althea and she will guide me. And so like, it's really important to have someone like that. And I would say that's my mentor as well as my coach, who has helped me build my business and has made several connections for me where I could, get my taxes done, having someone that does my finances, or helping me get into spaces that I don't know who to contact, but she has the contact and she will connect me. So that's been really important. But besides those two, a lot has been on me, and I think that's just a me thing, right? Like until I really don't know how to figure out the answer after doing my research, then I will go out and seek something else out. But there are so many resources out there too that I feel ashamed that I haven't gone, like such as the Exchange Center at Beverly Gray, right? They help lots of entrepreneurs, especially entrepreneurs of color. The Kenesha's Women Business Center, also specifically for women, But it's just my stubbornness. It really is, and I get some gratification out of being able to research it and discover it myself too.
Do you feel like a sense of responsibility to advocate, or even because you mentioned your mentor? Do you feel like a sense of responsibility to mentor or advocate for other Latina entrepreneurs or business owners?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, okay, so I talked about my background being in non-for-profit organization for over 2 decades. My primary job was connecting people to mentors. My entire career is what I've done is I have found individuals in our community that want to volunteer their time and connected them with people who needed them in some type of respect, right? And so some portion of that was like individuals who were striving for good mental health. And so those individuals, I would connect with community people who were mentors to them and help them, with any mental health challenges that they might have been facing. And then I moved into the education system where I connected high school age students with mentors to help them navigate what high school is and just having an outlet outside of their family that they can talk to about anything really. So like mentorship is really important to me. It's helped me my entire life. My entire career has been based on mentorship and how important it is. And I think it's really important when it comes to people of color, having mentors, and not just having mentors that are of color that you can share your, triumphs with.
And they have a sense of understanding, like culturally.
Absolutely, but also like our Caucasian friends, right? Like those individuals too can offer a different perspective. And so like mentorship, everyone should have a mentor. Yeah. Everyone should have a mentor. And I can't emphasize that enough, is that like you don't grow unless you're getting different perspective and someone to be your soundboard, right? That you can talk to open and honestly, that could provide you with feedback and be a champion in your corner, and be there, for any troubles or triumphs that you have.
For sure. Now, who are some Latina business owners or leaders who inspire you?
Ooh.
And if they're not Latinas, just women.
So there's actually quite a few in our Buffalo area. If have you either one of you heard of Healthy Rican?
Yes.
Oh, yes. I actually bought both of my parents Healthy Rican for Christmas.
Oh, yes. I found her. Well, I've been knew about her a long time ago, but when she was at the co-op, Lexington Co-op.
Oh, she
bought the adobo. I bought sazon. I bought this other spice mixture of hers.
Yeah,
she's on Amazon.
Yeah, she sells her products on Amazon, but during Hispanic Heritage Month, she was selling her products at the Lexington Co-op.
Yep.
Her name is Mayra Luz Colon, and she has all natural seasonings. Adobo, salt-free sazon, sofrito. So all of those Puerto Rican staples, ingredients, and seasonings that we use, she makes a healthier version that tastes just as delicious.
Is that what you use? I'm sorry, Dinorah.
I do not. So I make my own. So like sofrito, I will make my own sofrito, right? And then as far, I don't use a lot of adobo. I know I use it in my own personal food.
Yeah, I actually don't use a lot of adobo in my own personal food. A sazon either, only if I'm making specific things, but I like how she has a sazon without the red. Well, red dye 40.
Yeah, and the red dye as well.
Is the red dye. I know, and I can go on and on about that, but my mom, she... I would say like about 20 years ago, she made a change in the way she makes her Puerto Rican food because of just learning about like what MSG, red dye does to your body. And she just kind of clicked this light on for me. So yeah, no.
Well, I'm going to still use my MSG, my accent.
They say it's always not so bad. So
yeah, I mean, everything in portion, right?
Yeah.
So she's great, Latina-owned business, which I follow. She's Healthy Rican on Instagram. Also new to the Latina landscape, entrepreneurial landscape, is Prohibition Desserts. It's Prohibition Desserts 716. They make amazing alcohol-infused cupcakes.
Okay.
I mean,
with the little shotters that go in there. Oh, I've seen those before.
Yeah, but
I had them at one of her Stephanie's events. They were good.
So it's a friend of mine, Rachel, and her sister, who started it, and this I think also just like quite a few months ago they started, and they've really taken off, right? Because they provide something that isn't readily available. Sure, you can buy cupcakes, but alcohol-infused cupcakes that you can take to a bachelorette party or your parties, right?
Yep, happy hour.
Happy hour, exactly. And they're super delicious. They're on Instagram as well at Prohibition Dessert 716. M's Escapes.
Yes, I'm familiar with her.
Yeah,
she went
also
to school 3 too.
Did she?
Yep. So me and Stephanie,
you guys went to the same school?
Yeah, we went to the same
different
time. School 3, and we both went to McKinley and majored in the same thing at McKinley.
Yup,
but Emily's is for school 3.
I love that. See, producing amazing people.
Yes.
But she does a lot of event planning. And she's really awesome. And then lastly, Tyrene Tapia. Who she advocates for a Latina empowerment on entrepreneurship, and she's the founder of Latinas Evolving.
Yes.
So those 4 right there, just in our area, are powerful women in Latina entrepreneurship, right? So
it's great to see other Latinas just venturing out and starting their own business and taking that leap of faith, like you said, Stephanie. I'm someone that I get stuck in my ways, and I like the security of work. Some people can't do the 9 to 5, but look, I'm happy with my 9 to 5.
All
I put
good.
my PTO. I schedule my vacations, but there is always been that little voice in the back of like, well, what's that other thing that you want to do for yourself? What's that thing you want to invest in your own business? So it's that little voice, and seeing you ladies is very empowering.
Oh yeah,
Thank
super
you.
inspiring.
Thank
Dinorah and I are
you.
very similar. So always like, we got to do a business together.
Yeah.
And sometimes,
We'll think of it.
sometimes it's, like, that you want to do it. You just don't know what.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I talked about that a little bit earlier, is that like, I always have had the entrepreneurial spirit, but I just didn't know what, right? Like it wasn't until like I was solid on like, oh shoot, like I really want to make empanadas and make this a business. And I felt a burning passion. I felt a burning passion to do it. And so it's not until then that I was like, okay, I'm going to take this leap of faith because I'm betting on myself right now. And I believe in myself.
And is this a family affair? Because I had ordered, I ordered from Stephanie. It was the perfect thing because you say about the students wanting something else. I was in this after school program, and we were doing a family potluck for Thanksgiving. They said, well, you can't bring food that you make. It has to be from a business. So then I was like, oh, have Luna Empanadas. And these are Latina girls that we were going to mentor.
Yeah.
And I ordered from Stephanie, but I went to pick it up, and it was her mom that gave me the food. So is it a family affair?
She's adorable too. I met her.
Yes, it is a family affair. It's a lot of work when you first start, a business venture, and you become an entrepreneur, right? It's a lot to cut down on costs, to keep a lot of your profit. You have to do it on your own, or you quote unquote employ and pay with your love and food. Right. So my mom is my saving grace, man. Like, she helps anywhere, everywhere, anytime that I've asked my mom. She's always been there. She's my backbone. And like, I literally need her, because even when she's not physically helping me, she's emotionally and mentally helping me. Right. So emotionally it could be draining. It could be draining. Because it's just, being a single mom, right. And managing everything that I have to do at home, but then thinking about everything that I have to do with my business. It's just mentally draining, right? Like it's scheduling. It's like, okay, I fulfilled my obligations as a mom. Now I have to fulfill my obligations as a business owner. And what does that consist of? Buying food, making the food, storing the food, then making and producing the food for the actual event, delivering it to the event, all while juggling 100 other things. So if my mom is my biggest champion, and she is always there for me, even if it's just like, I need to just cry for a minute. I need to tell me it's going to be okay. Aww. And then let's move on.
And there's like nothing, like there's something about a mom's hug and their voice. It's like, just makes everything better.
Yeah. There's never anything that my mom, it's always positive, right? She's like, you'll get through this. Everything that my mom says is encouragement. Even when I fail, it's about encouragement. And like, this is just, an obstacle in your way. You're going to be okay and do better. So it's
such a blessing.
She is.
No, I love
my
that.
biggest blessing.
No, you're listening to WBFO Generaciones con Sin Fronteras with Sheana VanDyne and Dinorah Baines, and our special guest Stephanie Rivera. She's here with Half Luna Empanadas. We are going to wrap up soon, but I just wanted to ask you one last question: is what advice would you give your younger self, or any young entrepreneur that is it can be a Latina, it can be, just a young woman, or like I said, your younger self, or even your daughter? What would you tell them when they said, I think I want to start my own business?
Ooh, okay. I mean, there's a lot of things, but I think primarily is like, surround yourself with people that love you and that believe in you and that encourage you, because those are your champions, right? And they're there, and they're going to be honest with you. And they're going to uplift you in the moments that you feel most down. And there are a lot of times where you feel like giving up. There are a lot of times that you're going to doubt yourself. There are a lot of times where you're not going to feel confident. And that's just part of being a business owner, an entrepreneur, is like you have a lot of self-doubt. And you question yourself a lot. But if you have people around you that support you and are there when you have your highest highs and your lowest lows, that is going to be crucial to being successful. Because I can tell you that, initially when I started my business, I had someone that didn't support me, and it was one of the closest people to me who questioned everything that I was doing, but not with good intent, right? Mm-hmm. Or who told me that I wasn't going to be successful in being a food entrepreneur because I didn't know how to, manage my finances, and the food costs are too much. And, the list goes on, right? And you start really doubting yourself.
Mm-hmm. And believing those lies.
And believing it, yeah. Mm-hmm. And then that gets you in a depressive state, and then that turns into like, I don't really feel like putting any effort into this anymore. And then I had to remove that person completely from my life.
Good.
Good.
I had to remove them from my life because they weren't doing anything that helped me. Yeah, they weren't contributing to it. They were just belittling me, right? And like, so, and that's okay. They say that people are in your life for a reason or a season or a lifetime. Yeah. There was a reason that person was in my life. I learned my lesson, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. And I moved on. Mm-hmm. But I had to remove them from my life. And once I did, I was thriving because I was no longer listening to, what I couldn't do, but I was surrounded with people who loved me and telling me what I can do and could do. Yeah. And that I manifested all of that. And it's really propelled me in an upward position where it's like, wow, I'm really now soaring, whereas before it was like trickling in. I was doing okay, but it was a roller coaster ride, right? It was some highs and some lows, but now I feel like I'm on more highs and lows. Mm-hmm. And that really has to do with the people that I have surrounded myself with. Mm-hmm. So surround yourself with people, and it could be family, it could just be your friends. Sometimes family doesn't support. Yeah. Thankfully for me, I do have that, but sometimes it's your friends that are the most supportive. Mm-hmm. So find that first, right? People who believe in you.
Well, we love you and we believe in you. We support you. So te amo mucho. And we thank you for coming on Generaciones. Dinorah, tell everyone where they can listen to this.
So you can listen to this on WBFO HD3 Radio 88.7, or you can listen to it through wherever you could listen to podcasts on the Hispanic Heritage Council website. And Stephanie, tell us again where people can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on the socials, on Instagram and Facebook at halflunaempanadas, or you can find my website at halflunaempanadas.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
You're very
Thank
welcome.
you, everyone, for joining us. Stephanie, Sheana, and this is Dinorah.
Bye.
Adios.
Adios.